Eric, you're a scientist. What do you make of this?
Well, I mean, the whole thing's absolutely fascinating. To me, we've reached some point of decadence and exhaustion that we were not expecting. And I think we had thought that the Enlightenment was very well embedded in many of these societies, and we now find that it's sort of like down to a handful of people whose names we can reel off, who are willing to defend it in an environment where every time you stand up to defend this thing, you find yourself in a world of hurt. And we're not exactly up against the intellectual A-team either. So,
can you just unpack what you mean when you say that you stand up to defend it and you find yourself in a world of hurt?
Well, if I say, there was a tweet the other day from Planned Parenthood of Kentucky, which made a very interesting biological observation. I'm not sure if it was peer-reviewed or not, but it said, some men have a uterus 15 times. Some men have a uterus, because apparently things become more true as you perseverate.
It was peer-reviewed in Teen Vogue.
Well, yeah. And I think my response was, either you're referring to persistent Mullerian duct syndrome, in which case this is not how we discuss science, or you're just eating a box of multicolored crayons hoping to shit a rainbow. And I can't tell you how much you know what they meant. So, no, I don't fully know what they mean. I think what you're telling me that they mean is that this would be a really good place to lie about things in a particular way that's kind. And I do think that that's important. There are load-bearing fictions. In America, it's very important, one man, one vote. But why is it that Wyoming has 2 senators and,
2 people.
What?
It's 2 people and 2 senators.
Yeah. Right. So, the whole thing is prima facie insane, right? If you think about it as contract bridge, the Enlightenment gets into trouble by extolling its own virtues, like one man, one vote, and all men are created equal, and then everything is honored in the breach. And so people who get really angry about these sort of hypocrisies get very, very angry. So let's define something called Enlightenment Plus. Like, you get the Enlightenment, which is all the good stuff, and then you get like the Dulles brothers and Kermit Roosevelt trying to destabilize Iran, and COINTELPRO in America assassinating Fred Hampton in his bed, and driving Jean Seberg to miscarry and commit suicide just because she was a supporter of radical black rights in the 60s. We've done a lot of bad things, and we've extolled these virtues in a way that many of us find absolutely exhausting. Now, what's interesting to me about Maajid's description is that, and this is something I don't think we've discussed before, but Bret and my family had a spy sent against it in the 1950s by our government. And the response to that is not, okay, well, the Enlightenment's off. This is, we're going to declare a Jewish jihad from the left wing for this patently unethical behavior. Instead, it's this sense of, oh man, I'm going to use the Enlightenment and shove this shit down your throat. I'm going to make you so sick and so upset with yourself that you come to understand the pain that you've inflicted on others for, let's say, the McCarthy era, or the Tuskegee medical experiment, or all of these things that are absolutely sickening and disgusting.
So the key question... You just made the point. It's only by reference to the Enlightenment, the values of the Enlightenment, that those violations of the values are problematic and are evidence of hypocrisy.
Well, I think
you're holding yourself to the standard that is being violated. And this is being weaponized against Enlightenment cultures by people who don't share those values. So very, very cynically, I mean, it is analogous to the use of human shields. It's like the people who will use human shields know that the people they're fighting care about so-called collateral damage, and it's an asymmetric moral contest.
Yes, but I would say that when you have 1.6 billion people, you can afford all sorts of exotic strategies like sending suicide bombers. when you're down to 20, your last 20 million or whatever it is that we Jews have, you're thinking like, hey, this Enlightenment looks like some pretty heavy weaponry. We should figure out how to wield it and take it away from the Scots, because I think this is our day, right? So I think it's very important to understand that there's a contract bridge element where you make a bid and then you fall short of the bid, and that embitters and angers people. But what I'm concerned about in this discussion is that somehow we're tired. We're just so exhausted. And you look at Islam, and man, Islam is muscular. Russia looks muscular. China looks muscular.
Well, that's the thing, is that anything looks muscular in the
compare it, you know. Clearly. I mean, you have a photo online posted yesterday with your midriff showing. So.
Yeah. Hello, Sydney.
Yeah.
I think there's an important point to make here, which is that I think that there is a danger we have conversations at different paces. I do want to get this point out the way so it's clear that when Douglas and I speak, and it became apparent when you brought the left in, which clearly we have that challenge with Corbyn's Labour Party in the UK as well, but the most pressing challenge we have in Europe is jihadism. And often when we speak, we're speaking to a reality in Europe. There's a lived experience. I walk down the streets especially when ISIS were in power, and I'm sure Douglas does as well, looking over my shoulder in case somebody's going to slit my throat.
I was told not to appear in public for a year by the police.
Yeah. So there's a danger that when we speak, we're speaking to a specific reality, but our words are going around the world, and that is in danger of being misinterpreted as an overemphasis on Islam, right? And so, just a quick example. Muslims in America, when surveyed, are more pro-gay marriage than their Christian evangelical counterparts, when surveyed. Muslims in Britain, when surveyed, are 53% in favor of criminalizing being gay. Now, this is the latest survey from 2016, right? And the one from America was from 2017. So when Douglas and I speak, we're speaking to a reality where 53% of my co-religionists want to ban his existence. Whereas in America, they're better than the Christians on that front. So just want to get that point clear, that there are slightly different realities. We're speaking to different emphases.
Crocodiles are nearer different boats.
And it's important to make that point, because when we speak to that specific reality, of course, our words don't stay in that reality. So we look as if we're overly focused on something when actually, you know.
So you also just have to note that there's this weird confluence between these two things, which to this day I can't make much sense of, where the postmodern left, and we can argue whether or not postmodern is the right term, given that most of the people in the category don't know anything about postmodernism. They're just behaving in a postmodern fashion, but that they are embracing and rationalizing Islamic extremism is a very interesting fact. That among the things that they don't understand is the danger of this extreme ideology that's being deployed, that is itself so very intolerant of things like homosexuality. So there is at the core, and if you haven't run into it personally, it's worth having some conversations so that you can actually hear what the thought process sounds like. But this idea that there is no reality, that all arguments, no matter how mechanistic and backed by evidence, are really power in disguise, and therefore you can make any argument, and if it functions in a powerful way, then it's as true as anything else. Therefore, stigmatizing people for things that they're not guilty of is as valid a thing to do as anything else. That concept is very destructive and dangerous, and it is backing both the attack on the Enlightenment within the academy in the West and the rationalizing of extreme elements in Islam, both of which are truly dangerous.